difficult to find. Oh my goodness. So, poor students. Now, once again, there is the usual problem that students, and again this is the kind of baseline guessing strategy, is that students should avoid answers with exactly the same sounding words. Remember, for all of these part 1, that is the default guessing strategy. It's not 100%, but if they're not sure, then choose the different one. And here we are. Now, this doesn't work sometimes because as you get to the end of part A, the questions become more difficult. Remember, this is the TOEFL strategy also for the reading and for the structure and written expression. The first few questions are easier, the later questions are more difficult. Remember, this does not mean students should not try. They should still try, because students surprise us sometimes, don't they, with what they know. So they should still be trying and not leaving them blank, but they do get more difficult. So towards the end, there are more TOEFL traps. Now, let's try. And we're going to listen to some questions and also think about the negative expressions. So, on your beautiful handout, here are 4 questions. Can you see them? They're here. Yes? Okay, you don't have them yet. Now, but as usual, remember, what do students need to do before they hear the recording? What do they need to look at? Okay, so please only look at this page first. Okay, look quickly first at the questions. Now, remember the strategies? The one that sounds different, but sometimes as well, the answer that looks different, and sometimes by looking at these, you can eliminate the crazy options. So once again, thinking about what advice you would give to your students, just look for a couple of minutes and discuss for half a minute with your intelligent friends. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Those questions, quickly look at them. Can you guess the questions? Can you guess possible answers? They're guessing already.
Psychic. A.
Yes, A doesn't seem to make any sense, does it? Has anybody here ever written a multiple choice test or exam?
Yeah.
Never. It's difficult, isn't it, sometimes to find distractors that are logical.
Yeah.
Trying to find that fourth distractor, you have the answer, and you have one that's nearly the same, and one that's completely wrong. But trying to find that fourth distractor sometimes is difficult. It's difficult to find something that's not completely crazy. Okay, 18. Any thoughts about 18? Possible answers?
A.
Why do you say A is the possible answer, Pat?
It's not really happy.
Oh, sorry?
I think they were satisfactory.
Okay. What about the rest of you? Any other possible answers for question 18?
A.
Why A?
That's something related to the work.
Okay. What's the other word that appears in B, C, and D? Okay. But what's the similar word in B, C, and D?
Contractor.
Right. If you look at this, we have contractors, contractor, and contacted. That should always be a reminder, because those words sound quite similar, but A doesn't have a word that sounds like that. And it's because it's not exactly the same word, but it's a little bit different. That's the big clue there. Okay, and 21, my age. Any thoughts about 21? D. Sorry? D. What about D?
C.
Okay. Now, let's listen to these, listen for the answers, and also listen for the negative or the nearly negative expressions. He is, so negating the have with "nt." Okay, 15.
D. David.
You'll make that Daddy unhappy now. We were saying Daddy before. Okay, so the woman said he couldn't finish the assignment because the library was closed. He couldn't finish the assignment because the library was closed.
Was it open?
So closed is the synonym for wasn't open. Homework is assignment. Couldn't finish is incomplete. And because is because. So 15 is Delta or David or Dede. 18.
A. Yeah. A.
What did he say?
It says state factory.
Strange English. So I'm rather dissatisfied, so negating satisfied with dis. So 18 was alpha. 21.
B. Delta.
Any more?
David.
Right. Again, listen, it's a slightly strange expression he uses.
Always late.
Means always late. And budget reports, accounting figures. And here we have budget, here we have budget, and here we have reports. And here we have time. So for guessing strategies, then eliminating A and C would be logical because they contain budget and time. By the way, busway, subway, students, this is kind of quite frequent TOEFL vocabulary. I'll start that again. this is quite frequent TOEFL vocabulary, the verb manages. As in, if you manage something, it means you do it, but it's difficult. Okay, now, are you feeling negative? So, for those answers, ding, 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 dong, 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 dong. Oh, actually, yes, I do have those, don't we? And there are the strange expressions, the negatives there. So, this is why sometimes it's important to make students aware of pronunciation in English and the fact that they often miss, especially they miss the nt, and they don't hear the negative part of it. It's easier with words like negative because it's clearly, with words like never because it's clearly negative. But that tends to be the problem. Now, let's continue with this negativity. So that's just simple, plain, ordinary negatives. Next, we come to double negatives. OMG. And by double negatives, once again, it's expressions like, it wasn't impossible. Again, we don't want our students to speak like this because it's not clear. But that's TOEFL. So we have sentences like this. So, what did she do? What's the implication? Who did she appoint?
The experience candidate.
Yeah. So, basically, the question choices might be something like, she gave the job to somebody with a good CV or something like that. These are on your handout as well. Sometimes there are just two independent negative expressions, like this one. So, independent clauses, one negated and the other one negated, joined by so for the reason. And the other expression, how do you pronounce that word?
Neither or neither. Neither or neither.
Yeah, both are correct, it's up to you. The American pronunciation, though, is almost always neither. So your students need to be aware because TOEFL is almost always American accents, so neither is the word they're looking for. And this is often used connected by and. For example, and again, with this kind of question, the correct answer choice might be something like, both of them failed to graduate, or both of them failed to finish college. So students need to recognise that both is the opposite of neither. Now, if you look at page 2 of your beautiful handout, you can see that you can you can raise your students' awareness by doing a little bit of practice with this. So you could give them sentences and they could transform them. So what if you had a sentence like, Fred and Jim were unhappy? How do you translate that to TOEFL English?
Not happy.
Fred and Jim were unhappy.
Fred is not happy. Neither is Jim.
Fred was unhappy and I was. So, okay, you could say, Fred was not happy and
Neither was Jim.
so it can be useful just to actually spend a few minutes like this. And once again, because we need to remember that teaching TOEFL preparation, we just need to keep it moving, especially if you're working online, remember, where it's really important to maintain the pace. So, with this kind of activity, if you were teaching it online, you would put the students in breakout rooms and you would give them perhaps 5 minutes to produce as many of these as possible. And in the breakout rooms, one person could share their screen, and then the others, they work together to produce sentences. For lower level students, you could just give them this sentence, some examples like this, and say, turn these into TOEFL language as quickly as you can. Either they reply to you through Zoom chat, or again in breakout rooms, and they work as quickly as they can. And the first person to finish leaves the breakout room and goes back to the main room. So particularly with teaching exam preparation online, these short activities in breakout rooms keep the lessons moving along and keep the students engaged. Any more examples of sentences you could use for your students to change to TOEFL language using the pattern at the top of the page?